for Mike as well.
Too bad.
Use the next little pen.
Whoa. Mike works in law firms too. That's very interesting.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Carrie Willigan. I'm the Director of Career Services for the School of Business, and we're thrilled you're here. This is the sixth Ask the Professional this semester, so this is our last for the semester. And we have a wonderful panel put together for you. This is our accounting panel. And we have our wonderful professor, Professor Ingram, is going to moderate the panel for you. Ask questions. They're going to give you some good information, and they're here to answer your questions. So, and we'll have some time. The panel will go till about 4 o'clock, and then you'll have some time to network. Okay? All right. I'll turn it right over.
Thank you, Karen. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us, our guests here on the panel, as well as our George Mason University School of Business students. This is the Ask the Professionals Accounting Panel, and we are delighted to welcome panelists and alumni that are here with us this afternoon to help you guys, our current students, understand how the School of Business majors translate into future careers in the world of business. So, what will happen now is our experts will help you understand more about your accounting major, if that's what you are currently majoring in. And we will give you some opportunities that are available to you with that accounting major, that degree, once you leave the Ivy-covered halls here at George Mason and enter the working world. We want to also talk a little bit about the current employment market for accountants, and a variety of the different kinds of work environments that you can find as a rewarding career environment. So we encourage you to be involved in this, all of us. This is a Ask the Professionals meeting, which means that it's the whole idea here is that you guys can ask questions that you would like to ask the panelists. And I think what we'll do is we'll start by 3 stages here. First, what we'll do is I would like to kick off by asking the panelists here to introduce themselves, to give a brief introduction of their background, as well as then, secondly, we'll talk a little bit about the prepared questions. I have a couple of questions if you guys don't want to chime in right away, which would be fine, but I have a couple of questions that we could start with. And then thirdly, we encourage, of course, everyone here to participate and to involve the group here by asking questions of our panelists. So let me first ask the panelists, please, to introduce themselves. Michael, why don't you go first?
Certainly. Is this on?
Yeah.
So welcome, everyone. My name is Mike Finan. I'm with PricewaterhouseCoopers. I'm a tax director, like a few of my other colleagues on the panel here. So we just got through tax season, which if you join us in tax, you'll get to learn that's a few extra hours and some interesting work. Been with PwC over 20 years. I now kind of specialize in partnership taxation. Most of my work is with law firms. I do a lot of compliance. I do a lot of consulting with them. They're geographically all over the country. Some are all over the world. So my expertise, or some specialists, and do some work in international tax as well. Luckily, I have colleagues around the world that help me quite a bit on that. And that's kind of my focus. So I'll turn it over to Steve.
Yep. My name is Steve Rose. I'm with Rose McKenna in Washington. I started my career with a big firm. Our practice is geared towards high net worth individuals and their family entities, whether it's family partnerships, trusts, private foundations. We often define what we do by what we don't. So if the water company came to us or the university came to us for tax services, we'd say we'd leave it to a firm who specializes in that, but instead we specialize in tax services for the individuals. So if the CEO of the water company, the CFO of the water company, or someone here at the university individually needs our services, that's what we do. So welcome.
Hi. My name is Jonathan Lanner. I'm a first-year manager with KPMG. I'm in the Business Tax Services group. I do a little bit of everything in the compliance and consulting group in our office. I've been with the firm around 6 years almost, and looking forward to talking to you today.
Thank you, Jonathan. Welcome, everybody. How are you all today? My name is Shannon Goto. I'm a George Mason alum, graduated in 2007. I've been working with Baker Tilly for 10 years now. My main focus right now is in assurance, but I also do some tax work, so I'm somewhat of a generalist, and that's really how I've been throughout my career. So if you have questions about audit versus tax, I'd hope to be able to answer some of those questions for you, as far as it's something I still battle as far as which one I like more. I guess it depends on how well that day is going. Similar to Mike, I actually do work in our professional services group, so I deal with a lot of law firm clients, professional service firms, although I do take care of a lot more of the audit side, so reviews, compilations, audits for various bases of accounting, including modified cash, income tax basis, GAAP basis, for our law firm clients. And also in the summer, I take care of a lot of their benefit plan audits. So definitely a wide range of services that we do, specializing in professional services. So please feel free to ask any questions you have. Very nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Well, why don't we begin by looking at some of the more basic questions, I guess. Our students here are busily working on their degrees, most of them accounting majors, and they are pondering their career future, and they're wondering what opportunities might be available that they can use their accounting major to help them move into these various different areas. So perhaps one of you would like to help them to understand what kinds of jobs do students typically pursue after accounting majors, after an accounting major and they get the degree.
Well, I'll start and I'll congratulate you all on being very, very smart on the major that you've chosen, because I'm sure some of you have, and a lot of us. I went to law school, which is kind of a liberal arts focus. In general, if you have an accounting degree nowadays, it's a lot easier getting a job than with another major. So I applaud you for picking a major where it's a whole lot easier to get a job than your peers who have other majors. So I think a lot of you guys will agree with that. Mm-hmm. And lots of opportunities in firms of all sizes for folks who have accounting majors.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, Steve. Probably one of the things you'll be faced with is, some of the decisions you'll make. And again, I work with PwC, so it's obviously one of the big four, right? We heavily recruit. We need a lot of young talent. We're looking for, a lot of diverse talent to come in. Like to say we do our goal is to retain a lot more people, but, we have a fair amount of attrition being who we are and the size of firm we are. But probably one of the things you have to ask yourself is really what your focus is on coming out of school. Do you want to go, and there's no right or wrong answer to this, do you want to work with a big four? Do you want to go to a regional accounting firm? And you should really interview with both, right? And get a flavor of what's out there and really see what fits, because we're going to, all of us kind of do similar work, but really want to find a kind of environment that you fit into and you feel comfortable with, and from there, it kind of sets you up.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And not just from Big Four to non-Big Four, also industry. Don't limit yourself just thinking, I need to go interview with just one group of people. I find that that's probably the biggest reason why someone might not find a job right out of the gate. They haven't really opened their eyes to everything that there is to offer. But once you've decided on accounting, and then your mindset should be, well, do I think I want to go the advisor route? Do I want to go tax? That's kind of the next question. How has your classes influenced you, your internships, the people you've spoken with? So that's kind of where the next line of thought, I think, goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and obviously, all of us up here represent public accounting firms, so we definitely would agree that as far as starting your career, going into a firm like a CPA firm is a great way to start your career. The amount that you learn in your first couple of years at a firm like ours it will really set the tone for the rest of your career. So thinking about starting a career in public accounting is actually a very good thing to think about. Obviously, there are opportunities in private, but what I will say is you can always go to private at some point. But maybe going the other way around is a little bit more challenging. So good things to consider, thinking about audit, thinking about tax. I was talking to Jonathan earlier, and we were talking about how a lot of times your perspective on what you want to do coming out of school is, do I want to tax, do I want to audit, is sort of based on your impression on your audit class or how well you did in your tax course. But I can be honest and say that it's going to be different. So keep an open mind. You might really like one over the other, and you'll be surprised.
Yes, just as a comment, what Steve had started out saying was that you guys did the best job for yourselves in choosing an accounting major. It is the most flexible major, certainly in the School of Business, and I think in the entire campus, the entire university. Accounting majors, you can have a degree in accounting, and that will open more doors for you in more diversity of different types of employment opportunities. Our panel is representing predominantly CPA firms here today, but of course Mason graduates end up all sorts of places. They end up in private organizations, corporations, of which many have their world headquarters here in the metropolitan area. There are more governmental entities here, federal, state and local governmental entities. Many hundreds of Mason graduates pursue jobs in the governmental field. And then, of course, we have in this area around the nation's capital more not-for-profit organizations than anywhere else on the planet. And every organization that has money flowing into and out of it has accountants working there. Many hundreds and hundreds of Mason graduates are working in many not-for-profit organizations located around here in the metropolitan area. These CPA firms that our guests represent have audit teams that go and audit these organizations, and there they see the Mason graduates working in these not-for-profits, these governmental entities, these private corporations, and here comes the independent CPAs coming in and interacting Mason graduate with Mason graduate. So it is a variety of opportunities that you have. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to clarify, the accountants work directly for the firm, and the firm is contracted by these non-for-profit organizations?
Well, I would let the panelists answer that question.
Yes, I mean, depending on, and I agree with the Professor, over my entire accounting career, and I'm sure my fellow panelists, and some of us are a little bit older than others on the panel, but I would say there's only been one or two times that I know that my firm, PwC, has not been hiring. Even today, we need people at all levels. And again, and we have people, and we have needs across the country. Luckily, the firm is doing well. But to answer the question, I mean, I guess what the Professor was talking about it, obviously take a company that's public, right? There's a requirement to have an annual audit, right? On SEC rules, a number of our rules, but typically SEC, right, has to have an annual audit. Right? So those firms have to go to an independent accounting firm. It can be PwC, it can be Baker Tilly, it can be a number of firms, but it has to be a firm that can handle that type of work. And those folks we tend to call assurance, right? That's just kind of a buzzword they have. But their expertise or specialization is in auditing and issuing an independent financial report. And I'm sure you've seen some of that in your studies when you read an annual report and you read the opinion letter, kind of what that's stating. Other entities, private businesses may have a mandate because of a banking requirement, good governance. There could be a number of reasons. I myself focus only on private companies, and most of those also require some type of audit. So within the group I work with, we have people that concentrate on providing audit services. Does that address your question?
Yeah, that was a good question. Yes,
Please.
ma'am. Okay, the question is, what is the ideal education? Is there a way to ideal educational path to pursue beyond the 120 hours of a bachelor's degree in order to get the 150 hours that is required to be licensed in Virginia. Once one passes the CPA exam, which you can take with 120 hours of college credit, you then need additional 30 hours of college credit in order, a total of 150 hours, in order to be able to be licensed as a certified public accountant. And so I think your question is, what is the ideal path beyond the 120 hours?
Yeah. So I can start with that by experience with folks on our team and through others' experience. Don't wait. Don't stop at 120, go to work and say, oh, later on I'll add the other hours. Lives get a whole lot more complex once we start working. So we've had folks come to work with us with something less than 150, and we'll pay for them to get the additional schooling. But it's hard. We have tax seasons. We have busy seasons. So it's hard to fit the schooling in, whether you do it online or come out in the evening and do courses. So my best advice is keep moving. Don't wait. Keep adding those hours to get to 150 and just be done with it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Steve, that the sooner you knock it out, the better. Because life, you guys are busy now, I'm sure, but you'll find that as you get into the career, things just get busier. More demands on you from a professional, maybe more demands personally with, significant others, children, all the other things that come in life. So I think it's just, if you can, I know colleges obviously is a financial cost to college, but I think if you can kind of power through it, and then once you have the opportunity, really don't focus on taking the CPA exam and knocking that out. And I think that's where I see even some of my colleagues who are, trying to, we promote one level, meaning if you come in as an associate, we'll promote to senior associate, but after that you won't be promoted without passing the CPA exam.
Yeah, and I think just to sort of get a little bit more specific to your question, I think that's something that people are always concerned with. Do I need to go get a master's? Do I need to do a double major? And if I am going to do a double major, what should I do, right? What's going to be the best way to make sure I get hired? Certainly your accounting degree is the most important thing, and making sure you get your CPA. Those are the two things that we're going to really care about. But I think as far as anything above that, you just need the 150. So if you want to just focus on sort of traditional tax and insurance type work, getting an accounting degree, getting additional 30 credits somewhere else is probably fine. But there are other ways that you can branch out into the accounting field, right? Something that I've seen is very common is doing maybe some sort of an ISOM paired with accounting, because that might give you something more of an opportunity to work with maybe IT audit, or if you're more interested in technology. So there are opportunities there if you have sort of different combination. Oftentimes you'll see finance and accounting that tends to be a good opportunity if you're interested in advisory, because it sort of gives you a more well-rounded experience level. So definitely those are great options for you. Sometimes people come in with a whole lot of extra classes because they changed majors and they have their 150 without needing to do anything else. And then for those people, I would say, get your 150 and start working, and then you'll see what you want to do, because it's hard enough just to take the exam while you're working if that's the situation you're in.
Yeah, and then in those 30 credit hours, try to do something that would benefit you, whether it's a writing course, a speaking course, things that you can use practically in the real world. I think those help immensely. I can tell you a lot of people will come in with a lot of a great accounting base, but then maybe not have taken a writing class, so then they need to go back and kind of relearn a skill set. So try to do things that you think, as you take that next step, will benefit you in the path that you want to go on.
Very good points, Jonathan. And Shannon, I want to also emphasize that, in answer to your question, the additional 30 hours beyond your bachelor's degree of 120, the additional 30 that are required for licensure and being able to practice public accounting. You can do that in the form of a degree. Here at Mason, we have the Master of Science in Accounting degree, which provides that additional 30 hours. You can, instead of doing that, you can, as was mentioned here, you can mix and match. You can take some hours of the 30 here at Mason. You can take some hours somewhere else. It doesn't have to be in a degree program. As long as you have the college credit to make up that additional 30 hours, that's all you need. Yes, sir.
The 150 requirement seems to be a nationwide contract.
It is. 150 hours is a nationwide requirement. Yes, ma'am.
So just to follow up and to clarify, so those additional 30 hours, they don't have to be like upper level accounting courses?
Some of them do have to be specific to accounting, but others are, shall we say, electives. And that's what Jonathan was mentioning, is take a writing course if that will help you. Yes, sir.
What's the difference between a certified accountant and the private sector?
Having studied for and passed the CPA exam, basically, you need experience as well to be licensed to practice public accounting in any state. But the difference, CPAs have acquired a level of knowledge and skills and demonstrated their understanding of that level by passing a rather rigorous 16-hour CPA exam.
I think it's critical if you want to be an accountant to get a CPA license or get a CMA or some of the other professional designations. I mean, there's chartered financial CFPs, chartered financial planners. I think there's a couple of little acronyms out there, but I think it's important. I mean, it kind of sets you apart right from the competition. That's what you're trying to do when you go for a job too, right? Just like you're doing here, you're probably trying to take some additional classes or kind of do something where you can kind of go to someone when you're interviewing, say, yeah, I've done this extra, I've done this skill. I think a CPA, you have to have in public accounting. I think public accounting is the best spot to start your career. I don't think you have to, obviously you have to maintain and be there your whole life. But I think that it's just that professional designation, I think, carries this additional weight in the marketplace. And again, CPA is the most well-known, but there's others too. If you're an individual doing individual financial planning, there's designations as well in that field.
Yeah, and as Mike's mentioned earlier, you kind of stall out as you progress in the Big Four. You could be the best accountant at the firm, but we have rules that say you can't make manager unless you're a CPA or something, or another kind of licensure in a different group. So it only benefits you as you progress in the future.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty consistent with most public accounting firms that you're going to be, that you would see out there.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
What are some steps you recommend for someone interested in getting into the field of IT audit?
Well, not being someone that does IT audit, I think what I said earlier is sort of understanding that there is a technology component to it. So having some experience and taking some IT type courses is probably very important. Certainly, the best thing to do is you'd want to talk to somebody in the industry that does IT audit and get a sense of what that development process needs to be. So when you go to events like this or go to job fairs or find out sort of what different firms do, that's a starting point for sure. Speaking in very general terms, those some sort of IT component to your business school classes is going to help you, and that would get you noticed if you're submitting an application to a firm that does that type of thing. But that will help. I mean, to be honest with you just have to be interested in it, though, because I think we're going to talk about trends in the industry and whatnot, and that's certainly a trend of finding ways to audit through the computer, finding ways to gain efficiency through technology. So if that's something you're interested in, there is a future to it. So.
Yeah, and these, probably all our firms, check out our web page. Like, you go to pwc.com, there's a wealth of information on there that you can kind of drill down and just see, getting some clarification on some of those topics.
Yeah, I think knowing what you want to do at this point is a huge advantage. I would reach out to the campus recruiters, and when you identify them, whether it be KPMG or another firm, tell them what you're interested in. They will get you in contact with the right partner or manager of that group so that you can kind of see what it takes to be in that path, in that career path.
Great. What other questions do we have? There's experts up here, and they're happy to help you.
There's a tendency in the accounting industry for a high turnover.
For a high turnover?
And how does that impact your hiring decision? And how does that impact decisions made by the company? And what mechanisms do you guys use to stop?
So, yeah, I think I can speak to my firm, and probably the big four. I mean, they're definitely known, and what colleagues correct me, even the regional firms. Right? I mean, it's a demanding field. There's no doubt about it, right? It's not a 9-to-5 job, so it's just not. I mean, what we do, all of us, right, is we serve clients, and those clients have put demands on us. At times reasonable, and at times, unfortunately, not reasonable. That's kind of what we signed up for. We hate to. I mean, personally, I hate to lose people. One, I've spent time training, and like all of us have, right? And spending a year or two with someone, helping them develop. It's a cost to the firm when you lose somebody. And honestly, your value is not, say, in your first or second year, because there's so much to learn, right? It's really a couple of years after that is when you really become kind of having that solid knowledge. I think you really, even the people I talk to, they realize that at some point, hey, I'm really contributing now because I've got such a base knowledge to what I had before. But we have plenty, we try to, from HR initiatives, we obviously have, coaching. We try to do a lot of voluntary coaching where people can come and talk to us if, they feel like they're overworked. What I would say is if you, come into an environment, you feel like you're kind of getting beaten on, speak up. Right. Every firm, I'm sure, has protocols. I know we do. That whether you're a mentor, a partner, but go to somebody and say, say I need some help here. Because again, we don't want to lose people. It's inevitable that some people want to leave and do something else. It's just part of the business. But ideally, we hate to have someone who says, I really love what I do, but I just feel like I'm either working too hard or I'm just not being appreciated or being respected, and I can't stay here. And I'm going to go to Baker Tilly. I'm going to go to another firm.
But every job someone's going to work at is going to require hours and working hard. And the benefit of what we do is, look, I know I'm busy February, March, April. I know I'm busy, September, October. I know I'm not so busy in the summer. And the beauty of having a smaller firm, and again, I worked at a big firm for a long time, is in my business partners over here, that we can make our own rules. We know when we're busy, we know when we're not. And there's no such thing, in general, as a tax emergency. I know if I plan a trip on June 3rd, no one's going to pull it away from me. However, one of your colleagues has another major out here doing something else, maybe in engineering, and she or he is going to have a job, and on June 3rd, something comes up. It's like, nope, you got to cancel your vacation, you got to go do it. So what do we do to combat that? Is our firm from April 21st, which is Friday, if I'm getting that right, until August 1, we don't work Fridays. We close the door on Fridays. Simply close the door. We know when we're really busy. We know when we're not busy. So that's one of the things we do in our HR function to make life easier on ourselves after working very long hours for 2 months and another 2 months later during the year. But not every job out there. So, we tease and we see the wonderful, nice weather on February 28th. And how can it be 80 degrees out? It's so unfair, right? Now, It's a Tuesday afternoon. It's not like everyone's out shooting pool and drinking beer outside on a Tuesday afternoon. They're still working their jobs. May not be working until 8 o'clock at night. But they're still working. In any job, you're going to work hard. So, yeah, there's a detriment, but there's also a benefit. We know when we're busy, and we know when we're not busy, and we can modify our lives that way. You look at your job and you say, I've got to grade a bunch of papers here at the end of April, beginning of May. I'm super busy, right? My summer, I have a wonderful summer. It ends with a thud, and I have all these things I have to go do. Any job is going to have that.
And so knowing that these things happen from time to time, we always make sure that we have the next crop of new hires. So I think it's good for the upcoming class that there's always that set of jobs that we know that we can go out and hire the best individuals. As my colleagues have said, you kind of have to find your own work-life balance. When you start at one of our firms, I kind of implore you to find your voice, find a mentor, find someone that you can kind of talk to. You'll find that everyone's kind of going through the same growing pains. And when you're able to find that outlet, you're kind of able to pivot and make that next step that much faster. I found out early that I'm not going to have like a 50-50 work-life balance. Last week was probably more like 80-20. But this week it's going to be 20-80. So I know when I can take advantage of all my free time, plan 2-week vacations. I think last year I went for 2 weeks in Iceland. There's not a lot of jobs where you can go travel for 2 weeks and still have 2 weeks of vacation in your back pocket for the rest of the year. But that being said, you know that when you're busy, this is your job, and you're going to do a good job at it.
Yeah, and I think it's really important as you're looking at firms, like what sort of, what structures they have in place to support you, right? And we talked about having mentors, and so at Baker Tilly, for example, anyone that starts, you're assigned a performance counselor. So I'm a performance counselor for several individuals that I've seen develop from staff all the way. One individual might be promoted to manager this year, so I'm very excited for that. So that's going to be an important part because you need that voice. You need to be able to mention or talk to the people that you are working with about what you like and don't like to do. I was floored a few months ago. The chief operating officer for our office had a meeting with me, and she was just like, "So, what do you? How do you like the work you're doing? Are you working on the right things? Do you like this mix?" And I was like, "I've been here for 10 years. Like, don't you think I'm probably, I was surprised that they would care that much to say, oh, maybe we should take a couple things off your plate because you feel more passionate and want to focus on something like that." So I think you want to find a firm that's going to have that type of culture and really values, right? I do not want to see turnover at my firm if I can avoid it. If I get a sense from a staff that I have that they're thinking about leaving or thinking about new opportunities, we have honest conversations. I've helped people find new jobs, while they're working because, I knew that was what they needed and that was the support that I needed. And I've also had long conversations of the night trying to explain to them why this is the right fit for them. So it's very important. This is your career. But I think you want to feel that from a firm that you're interviewing with, that they're going to be in it for the long run with you. They're going to want to invest in you throughout your career.
Yes, ma'am. What type of skills? What type of skills are you looking for?
I think, there's probably a number of skills. Clearly, all of us have to work in a team environment. You have to be very collaborative in a team environment. You have to work well within a team. If you're in public accounting, key is serving clients, right? You may not serve clients. You may not have a lot of client exposure, say, your first, early on in your career, but at some point you have to develop those skill sets where you kind of are comfortable in a client setting, going to a meeting, speaking with a client. What I find the most valuable for folks that I'm working with coming out of school is just the software skills. And so much of what I work on is, we do lots of Excel spreadsheet work and tax returns, a lot of stuff that just needs really, good computer skills and good research skills. Right, so you can kind of, whether using internet or using, other means, just having that ability to really, and I think the last is probably just be very adaptable. It's a fluid environment, so just kind of be willing to work on anything, and kind of just, kind of be open-minded that, hey, even if there's something I'm not working on this week that I'm really enjoying, next week it'll turn. But the important thing is to be very flexible, because I think that gets, noticed, and people appreciate that.
And all of us, we did fine. We knew what a debit was and a credit was. We didn't know a whole lot about what we're doing now. We learned. And we learned from people that taught us. But I'm sure that we had something in common that a lot of you folks have. And when we go, my partner and I, when we interview folks, we could teach all this. What we can't teach is what you're going to learn from the home or your community or a place of worship or your friends. Things that can't be taught, but you're going to come in with, and that is how to be a sponge, how to be curious, how to want to learn, right? How to learn, how to not make the same mistake twice, how to keep information confidential. If I haven't said it again, it's really important. How to be curious, how to take care of yourself, work really hard, and maintain your own balance. All right, my day's over, putting my pen down, locking the door, going home. Really important skills, and really can't be taught here in school. They're really taught from the environments we're all brought up in, whether it's home or where we worship or our friends or communities. But that's really important. If you have that, this stuff we can teach you really, really easy.
Yeah, the willingness to learn is probably the best thing that I know that I look out for. especially when I see someone and I give a task or I teach a task, I see someone just go do it. And then I came back and I asked, well, what did you do? I want to see that you didn't just do the work and hand it to me, but know what you did, how you got there, and why you did it, so that you can go and pivot and do something else and use the skills that you just learned. So it's being the sponge. It's showing that you want to be in this field and you have a willingness to take that next step and learn. And I think these are just all great skills to have.
Absolutely. I echo everything that the gentleman to my left already mentioned. You know, we just want people that want to learn and want to be there. You know, you got to have that positivity. You got to have that desire, that passion for the work that you're doing, because you're going to learn how to use the tax software. You're going to learn how to complete an audit program, how to do audit testing. You're going to learn all of those things because you know that's the vocation that you're in, and that's what our jobs are going to be when you start. You know, I remember when I started as an intern for then Beers and Cutler, I was terrified because I was going to be like, hey, they're going to realize I don't know anything. I just know how to do like accounting in my 301 class. And you know what? It was okay because they kind of knew that I didn't know anything, and they were kind of willing to teach me the things that I had to learn about booking journal entries and about making sure how to reconcile retained earnings or something like that. So I wouldn't pressure yourself to figure out, gosh, every single thing that I need to learn about accounting and going through your textbooks over and over again. You know, focus on those other things that we're talking about. You know, how to be a really, sort of being that person that's willing to learn, that being that person that's willing, that the go-to person, right? That's what we want to see.
And if I can let you in on a really big secret, and if you lifted this thing up, you would see no one's going to kick me under the table when I say this. Nothing we do is really that hard. Now, we have lots of experience. We've seen a lot of the same stuff over and over. So something is brought to us. We say, okay, fine. We know how to handle that. We've all learned. We've had mentors. We've had people who have helped us along our careers. But it's the benefit of seeing the same thing over and over and over again. Some modifications where you need to have those skills I talked about. How to say, all right, I've got to dig in. I've got to research this. Find some way to get it done. But 90% of what we do isn't that hard. It's repetitive. It's the same stuff we've seen over and over. It's challenging, perhaps. It's interesting. But it's not really that hard. What's hard is coming in with these things you have learned or are learning right now. Those necessary skills to come in to be a really good colleague and teammate.
And it's probably never too soon to network, within even your class, right? Because you're going to learn from your peers, you're going to learn from supervisors, mentors. There's a number of ways to learn, but what I have the benefit of doing, Steve's right. We've collectively seen a lot of different things. But even if I haven't worked on something, I probably easily within 5 minutes can find someone within my firm who I can turn to and say, "Have you seen this?" Right, and that network becomes really critical, and that really helps you, I think, really continue to achieve and to grow. Because the more people you get to know, Steve and I actually worked together years ago. I mean, it's a small community you find, too. Even in Virginia, what I find with some of my professional services firms, I see people kind of move around. You start to recognize people. So the opportunity is there, and that networking is something you'll probably get tired of hearing that when you start, because people say you're building a network. But it's critical. And build it here among your peers. Because, again, some of the people you're working with here 5 years from now could be someone at a not-for-profit or a private company, or someone that calls up and says, "Hey, we went to school together 5 years ago. I've got an opening for a controller."
Going back to the workplace, do you guys ever see that anyone in your field is ever really well rewarded for getting their work done as fast as possible in one day, and then you can go home early, or is it really just get as much done within a certain time frame as you can? Or how do you see the work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's well, one, what we try to encourage, especially in busy season, right, is if someone is getting through stuff quicker, what we always recommend, if you can, if you have the time, reach out to your coworkers, right? Because someone else is probably, not through something, has maybe run into some roadblocks, and they could use some help. And that's going to come back around, right? There's going to be a time when you're sitting there saying, boy, someone could just give me a few hours. It would really help me out today. So it's, again, I think our environment, it's really a team environment. But clearly, if there was something, someone finished something on Thursday or say a Friday at 2:00, and that made the client deadline, I'd say, hey, and you've been working hard, I'd say, okay, if you want to wrap up and get out of here, kick off and get out of here. We are, we're not a 9-to-5 job in that. We're also not, and I say that too, it means that you don't have to be at your desk at 9:00, right? We let people kind of set their own hours with expectations the work's getting done. If people have commutes, people have child care issues, whatever it is as you grow through life, right? We're going to be flexible and say, okay, just let people know when you're going to come in, right? And we're going to work with you to make sure, it's working for you, it's working for us, getting the work done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I kind of see what you're saying there. I mean, I like what you said about the team environment, and that's what I try to express to the people that I work with. Because sometimes you might have a lighter schedule one week versus another staff, and that's not the time when you're necessarily going to say, "Wow, I'm going to have a light week. I'm so excited about that." But that's really where you're like, "Well, these guys are working so hard. What can we do to support one another and sort of make sure that we're all not here till midnight, but maybe we can all leave at 9 or something, or 8, or whatever the time is." So it really isn't like a quota system where as long as you get 10 tax returns done today or this week, then you're good. It really is. It's a community. It's a team where, hey, we all have work to do. We are all busy. So talk to the people you're working with. Talk to your counselors, your mentors, the managers that are scheduling your work. And if you have availability or if you're getting through things quicker, then that's an opportunity to help somebody else out. The other thing I'd say is that concept of efficiency and the billable hour. Just because you're doing things way faster than everybody else doesn't necessarily mean it's better, because maybe you're missing things. So again, finding that balance of getting through the work, but then also performing maybe some sort of self-review just to make sure that you're not going too fast. Because I've seen it both ways, right?
Yeah, I think you'll find pretty quickly that there's always work to be done. So you might not always feel like, oh, I've got everything done. I can just go home. It's very much a team culture, though, as my colleagues have said. You will inevitably be running hot, maybe for 2 weeks, and I'll notice if you're part of my team. And if I know that, and again, if it's Friday at 2:00, we're just going to tell you, go home, recharge, see you again Monday. You'll kind of learn to get your own voice and know where you're at, because we don't want you to get to a point where you need to be thinking about going anywhere else. We want to create that culture that you want to come to the office, you're excited about working with your team, you're excited about learning and new opportunities. So we want you to feel empowered to help someone else if you find that you have the time. Also, that you've created your own schedule that meets your best efficiency, so that you can be the best person for yourself and for the company. So again, it's kind of voicing yourself and and what your best intentions are, so the team knows, and we can create that culture for you.
It's funny, I would say probably when it comes to flexibility, public accounting is probably head of industry in flexibility, and which is you always think the opposite. When I came to school, people said, I want to go to private industry because they don't work as hard. What I find, I think when I talk to colleagues in other firms and the professional services firms that we're in, we're, I think, much more ahead of the curve. Steve has Fridays off for his teams, and giving people a lot more flexibility. I think private industry is still kind of stuck with, I need to see you. It's a 9-to-5 type, and I want to see you, Jonathan, at your desk at 5 or 9, right? And I expect you to be there at 5:05, when you pack up. So I think that's one thing. I think public, and I could be wrong, but I think public accounting is much more ahead of the curve when it comes to flexibility and trying to work with people's schedules.
Yeah, I'm an early riser, so I'm up at like 5:30. I'm at working by 7:45, 8. I might have staff under me or partners above me that don't come in to 10:30, but they might stay later too. So it's kind of working within your team, finding when everyone works the best. Maybe I pass it on to the person below or above me, then they start working, and I'm always there to support. But I might know that at 6, 7, 8 o'clock, I've hit my peak. You might still be going. So it's kind of finding that balance.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious, on the topic of automation, how much of a risk do you think that is to both people who are currently in the industry and those looking to get
That's, I think, a good question. I think technology, like all across all industries, right? We are trying to get more from technology. We are trying to do more with technology and cut hours out of budgets. Some of it's constraints around fees and cost, right? You can't keep, it'd be nice if we could, right? You can't keep increasing cost every year. You got to look for efficiencies, and some of those efficiencies are going to come from systems and technology. I know all the, at least the big four, all have what we call service centers. And it's public knowledge, right? There's work that's being done in spots overseas, sometimes India, sometimes elsewhere, some low-cost centers in other parts of the U.S. as well. So I think it's a risk. I guess the key to me is always I still think a lot of what we need to do is, we can be creative. We can be very, client service. And I think if you're trying to focus on the clients, clients are still going to need certain things I don't think yet we can automate.
And so our firm, again, we're geared towards the individuals. And if we just put what we do on a conveyor belt and then it simply just runs itself, well, there's no value in that. There's no value to us. The clients don't see any value. Instead, the analogy that I use is, and let's say and we deal with very sophisticated people, and they'll get a notice from the IRS or a correspondence, and it says, you owe $1,500 or something like that. And this is coming from someone who's making $20, $30 million a year. I don't know what they're so exercised about, but they think they're going to jail. Simply because they got a letter from the IRS, they're going to jail. And the analogy that I use is, we all have busy lives, right? So we got to take our car to the shop in the morning, or the dog goes to the vet. And to me, there's nothing more frustrating. You take your car in and you see Phil, and Phil gives you the car and says, "Hey, Mr. Rose, I've got your car, and I'll let you know by noon what's going on. Do you need a loaner? No, I'll take the Metro to work. I'm good. Need the car back at the end of the day because I've got some meetings, I have places to go." Noon, he doesn't call me. I'm really busy doing what I'm doing, but think about my client who's the CEO of a company. I don't get that call. "Hey, Phil, what's the deal with the car?" "Oh, it's on the lift. I'll call you back in a couple hours." You don't get that call. That whole day, I'm so busy doing what I'm doing, but the most important thing in my life is not my car, it's Phil. What's going on with Phil? The same thing with our clients. "Hey, with this guy Steve, I sent that thing in there in the morning." So instead, what do? The thing comes off the fax machine, or it comes in, we hand it to somebody, and we say, "I've got this. I don't have an answer for you. Sorry. Looking it up. Here's my number. Here's my cell phone number. Here's a way to find me. If I don't call you by noon, sure as heck better, but if I don't, call me, scream at me, make sure it gets done." Automation is never going to help with that. And that's kind of the secret sauce of our business, of all of our businesses. And that is communicating with people, showing that there is some value in the human interaction. Computers can't do that. It simply just can't do that. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that, can make things easier for us. Software makes things easier. It adds numbers together. Computers make mistakes sometimes because input can be wrong sometimes. But nothing will take away from that secret sauce of communicating with someone and satisfying someone by being there and being responsive. And that's how you get new clients. And that's actually how you feel good about what you do. You actually provided some value. You made someone happy.
Yeah, and I think to some extent, if you're looking at people in our line of work, CPAs, the automation, those processes to improve efficiency aren't meant to reduce the number of people there, are just meant to reduce the amount of work that can get done, increase the amount of work that can get done. So, we do all sorts of things at our firm to help improve efficiency and to get work done quicker, but none of that includes hiring less CPAs. In fact, I'd say it includes hiring more people because with this great economy of scale we're able to develop based on this process, we want to bring in more people and get even more use out of it. So there's that too.
Yeah, automation is inevitable, but I think it allows you to spend more time researching, learning. I think it's important to know how to prepare and how to input, but it'll let you spend more time reviewing and growing different aspects of your career. So I wouldn't want you to think of it as a detriment. It's also an opportunity to do other aspects in accounting.
Very thoughtful responses. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Are there telecommuting opportunities?
No, we do it. We do have telecommuters. We have my group, we have flexible work arrangements. We let people work a day a week at home if they want to. We try to ask them to kind of people stay with the same day or just communicate so people kind of know schedules. I don't know if we do many. Honestly, I don't think we do too many telecommuters right off the bat coming into the industry, and part of that is, there's so much to learn. I think it's hard for people to learn off-site, right? And you're trying to be with your peers. So I'm not aware that we've honestly hired, and I could be wrong though. We're such a big firm. We could have people that we've hired strictly, to come in and work telecommuting. But I think most of it's happened when I've seen people that have more experience, and then it seems like it works, and it definitely just works depending on your line of service and kind of what your focus is. Some jobs are easier to do than others.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that sure. Initially, after maybe after a year or two, those opportunities would open up to you. But certainly in public accounting, I see it quite often. People being able to work from home a lot, and that flexibility is there for you. Probably not initially, because you do need to get yourself into the systems and learning the process and learning the technology side of doing the work. But much more. I think that those opportunities are available much more than if you were to go private and sort of do a 9 to 5, because that just isn't the same option.
I think it's easier too. I think once you've got to know people face to face, I think a lot of what I think that technology is doing it as a bad thing is that we're not becoming. I don't think we communicate enough face to face. I mean, I'm obviously not your age. I'm much older, so I haven't used the technology is a lot different that I had to work with. But I'm still I'm still in public accounting because I like to talk with people. I like to interact with people. I like to go to meetings, talk with people, say, Steve, what's on your mind? And I think sometimes the crutches, we sit in our desk and we just fire off an email, or we fire off at the same time, and I wind up with people sending me same time, and I say, stop. We got a question. I can't keep doing this. I've got the phone ring. I've got other things. Come sit with me, and we'll take 10 minutes and I can work through it. But I think those interactions too really, at least initially, when you get to know someone, I think I get to know someone. It's strange to have a client I've never met. It's an odd, and there's been times, but it's weird. It's something about seeing a person, meeting a person, like we all do, right? If you never meet someone, you have this kind of weird perception in your mind of what he or she may look like. It's always wrong, at least it is in my case. And I think that, I think it makes it easier once you have got to know a lot of people, like with your teams, and then to start to work remotely and telecommute. I think you've built a certain bond that it makes it much easier to do the job.
Yeah, just echoing my colleagues, it's very hard in the beginning to telecommute. The collaborative nature that we kind of have in our office, I find to be just immensely helpful for your career. But then there are opportunities in the future. But I highly suggest to try to be in the office or meeting clients as much as possible. Once you put a face to the name, you just develop a whole different type of relationship to build upon.
Yes, the earlier question on skills for entering into the accounting profession, there were such thoughtful responses and with deep experience and understanding of those skills that firms are looking for. And I would just embellish that a little bit by saying that certainly it's as Jonathan was just saying, as Michael was just saying, it's the interaction that you have with your clients. It's the face-to-face verbal communication. Writing, of course, communicating and writing, very important also, but it's the one-on-one, person-to-person, and to work on a person's skills in that area will help, no matter what your choice for career, to be able to communicate efficiently and effectively with people is very important in any career. I think we have time for maybe one more question.
Since we are in the DC metro area, can you go into some of the differences between public accounting and government accounting, such as that is done by inspector generals or DCAA or the IRS?
Yeah, I probably don't have a lot of experience. I mean, I know like PwC itself has a group that does government auditing, where they'll go into the Department of Defense or all these other groups. And we have other folks that and I don't really interact with them being a tax professional. I know we do have those, so I'm not really sure if I'm answering your question. Others on the panel may have more knowledge or expertise than I do in this.
Yeah, I mean, I serve private industry clients and whatnot. So, but I have obviously friends that work with government and work with, in those capacities. And I think, to some extent, the sort of the old adages about government moving slowly and, are somewhat true. So, I mean, I think that I get energized by working with private industry and working with clients that are trying to make money and they're trying to do what they can. So I don't have a lot to offer as far as what the difference between that job would be, but I mean, certainly, there is something different about working in public accounting and serving clients, certainly, and sort of being accountable for your time, right? So we're billed by the hour, we charge by the hour, and sort of that time, that experience that you have. While it's not always super complicated, our clients really appreciate that time because that's time that they don't have to spend worrying about their taxes or worrying about that audit, and they can focus on that time on building their businesses, and so.
We do have a wealth of understanding and experience here in the public accounting profession, CPA firms. Let me ask one question as we round out our discussion here, and let me ask the panel, for our students here who are either have gone through the interviewing process or perhaps next fall will be going through the interviewing process here at Mason, what are the areas within each of your firms that they have as an opportunity insofar as tax is different than auditing and insurance, et cetera? What are the big three or the big four areas that they can focus on as they anticipate employment in public accounting?
I know, and we obviously tend to always be hiring. We'll obviously HR kind of sets recruitment goals pretty far in advance as how many, kind of first entry class we need, how many students. To some degree, we try to let people, if they have an interest in advisory or interest in tax, interest in assurance, we try to put folks in those groups. It doesn't work all the time. And it might be someone coming in and say they want to do a certain type of advisory. It might say, well, that's not available. We'll get you into the advisory group. So I think it's, again, maybe just being very flexible, kind of where your career goes. Because once you're within an organization, especially early in your career, it's harder when you get more senior, right, to jump. Like I could now, I'm in tax. I couldn't now do something. I couldn't go to advisory in the same level of where I am because I just don't have that expertise. But early in your career, with the first couple of years, right, you really have the ability to navigate and go into different groups. We're an open firm. We're not going to say once you're hired in tax, that you have to stay in tax. We're going to let people move around if there's opportunities, openings, and that's within Metro DC and that's around the country. We post positions. Every employee has an access to a database that shows every open position in the country and actually around the world. And if you have the right skills, you get matched up, you can make the transition anywhere.
Internships I find are very, very valuable
point.
in all of our firms. I always value our interns in our spring busy seasons and our fall busy seasons. So I would seek those out. Speak to me. I'm happy to talk to you about those. But they're wonderful experiences. And again, ruling something out sometimes is a form of decision making. So doing an internship and say, I did audit, I didn't like it. I did tax, I didn't like it. But it was only a couple months, and I got paid, and it was great. Worked some long hours and saw what people did, and I'm glad I was exposed to that during that period in March and April of 2017. 20 years down the road, said I'm glad I was able to rule that out, or glad I ruled it in. Here I am now. I'm a partner of a firm. So I think internship opportunities are really valuable.
Yeah, the internship was my first awakening into the fields. What I love that KPMG allowed me to do was I was still unsure, as I was talking with my colleague earlier, whether I wanted to do audit or tax. I felt very impressionable by my professors, with good reason. But I said, I just don't know yet. And KPMG has a program that says, well, you can spend half your summer in audit, half your summer in tax. So I got a really great exposure to both. And I got to see what my dislikes and my likes were of both fields and what I felt would drive me into staying in this field for the long term and not just having this short, I'm going to be in accounting for 2 years and I'm going to use this as my launching pad for my career. I wanted to say that if I started with the firm, it's because I wanted to be there and not just for a set determined amount of time. So that's what kind of got me into the tax field. Now, KPMG is also one firm, and we want to do what's best for you. Because if you're happy, you're going to work harder, and you're going to work harder for the firm. So if you were in tax for 2 years or a year and you said, I really liked getting to know the audit team, and I really think that I would do well there, we are going to create an avenue for you because we want to see you be successful, and we want to see you be successful with us. So it's always about finding your voice, seeing what you're passionate about, and then speaking up and making it clear, and we'll help you get there. And that's, and hopefully that will help keep you in KPMG and public accounting for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, similar to my colleagues, if you were interested in working with Baker Tilly, we obviously have opportunities coming up. I mean, I think as far as public accounting in general, it's important to understand there is a recruitment cycle, right? So you have to be aware of when firms are out there looking for talent. So many firms are doing summer internships. So if you don't already have a summer internship for this summer, a lot of those spots might be full by now. But certainly looking out there, looking on the Go Hire Mason site to see what's still available. That's one step. We also do what's called externships, which are two-day events where you can get a good flavor for the firm, get a good understanding about what is Baker Tilly, what is KPMG, et cetera, and then. Usually at the end of that externship, you'll get an opportunity to interview for a potential internship a year away. So again, understanding that you're playing a cycle. So you want to make sure you get your foot in the door and are talking to firms early on in your career. So just for example, if you're interested in doing an internship not this summer but next summer, then my recommendation to you is get your ducks in a row and be ready first thing in the fall when firms are on campus doing interviews, when they're asking for resume drops, and make sure that you know exactly when those firms are doing their resume drops, and so you can be in the door and have an opportunity for either an on-campus interview or potentially going to their office to interview. One of our recruiting folks, Danielle Fine, is here in the room, so she'd be happy to explain any additional opportunities with Baker Tilly, but so that's really the cycle, right? Thinking about potentially an externship, internship, full-time hire. Those are the opportunities, and within those opportunities, of course, you have the chance to do both tax, audit. You can do advisory work. So we hire all those positions, as do my colleagues.
Thank you very much. Before our closing remarks here, if I could. Take a moment of our time, and in doing so, let me ask you to hear just for a moment about a new program that is started here at George Mason by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. They're, by the way, the organization that writes the CPA exam and administers it throughout the nation. The AICPA has started a new pilot program, which is called the Academic Champion Program. I don't know if you guys know about this, but I want you to be aware of it. The Academic Champion Program is started in just a few select colleges here, universities across the country. We're one of very few at Mason that has been chosen as one of the new pilot programs for the Academic Champion. So what is it all about? NOVA as well is partnering with us on this. At Mason here, I've been designated as the Academic Champion. We want to share with you just for a minute here, about what is involved with this. We want to promote an environment where students recognize the value of the CPA certificate and so that pursuing that certificate becomes a primary goal for students from all backgrounds here at Mason. Right now, what we find is that many of our students here really don't understand the critical importance of certification along the road to a successful career. And those few students who might be thinking about certification really don't know what resources are available to them. So my role on campus as the Academic Champion is to work with students to help them become aware of the resources that are available to them. And let me just spend a brief moment here to tell you what those student resources might be. First of all, we have a website. It's called This Way to CPA. It is the American Institute of CPA's website, and it's really cool. Okay, it's new, it's interactive. It will help you understand about the accounting profession, about the career opportunities. It will help give you some guidance. what you can do is you can look at CPA profiles where they have interactive and recorded responses from people who have been in school and just got out of school and starting to work in the CPA world for firms, and they explain what they do on a day-to-day basis. And then we have this Fit Your Fit on the This Way to CPA website, where you start, and it's an interactive thing. You say, what do I want to do in accounting? Well, what kind of type of employer do I want? What size of firm do I want to work for? What's the industry I want to specialize in? What practice area? You want to go in tax, in auditing, into advisory services within a CPA firm. This helps you identify your interest areas. And so then you get into a specialization and what's next. So that's another element of this Way to CPA exam, this Way to CPA website. Also, there are scholarships available for us to pursue to help us with our college tuition. There's many scholarships available at the AICPA. There's an interview simulation where you can go and talk to this guy who's an expert at it. And he's recorded, but you can get the idea of what you can do to improve your interview skills and what you don't want to do in an interview. There's also an indication of how you move towards licensure and know what it takes and how to get advice, learn about the licensure requirements for the various areas. For instance, Commonwealth of Virginia here. We have information about CPA exam diaries, about expressions of experience of students who have just graduated, have 120 hours or maybe more, and that they take the CPA exam and what it was like for them. And this is all contained within the This Way to CPA website. The last part of this would be state and territory requirements, and so if you're a resident of Virginia and you want to become a CPA licensed here to practice public accounting in the state of Virginia, this gives you some of the information for this and every other state. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. If you have questions about the CPA exam, about what's going on, how to do it, what it's all about, I'm the person to come to see on that subject here at Mason. Okay? Well, this has been a very, very important and I think helpful session for us all. I want, on behalf of George Mason and the School of Business, to thank the participants here this afternoon, with Shannon from Baker Tilly, with Michael from PricewaterhouseCoopers, from Jonathan with KPMG, and Stephen from Rose McKenna. And it is so wonderful that you could help us here with all of your wonderful insights. I found it to be educational from my perspective. I gained a lot, and I know that our students here did as well. So again, thank you, gentlemen, for attending with us and coming out here and helping us. And thank you all for attending this afternoon. Now, I believe there's some refreshments available, and we can also have an opportunity to, well, I guess you call it networking. And so we can talk to each other and have a good time. Thanks for attending.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything.
You get back to Northeastern a lot?
No.
We go with her twice a year.
How are you?
Twice a year to get interns.
It's a great, that's the issue. Like our Boston office gets a ton.
Yeah, we're having such a hard time now because you guys.
I know, we just take so many, but it's a great program. Jonathan, likewise, nice to meet you. Hey, Dawn.
Heather.
My name is Liam.